Hi everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. To those who are new, thanks for checking out my channel. It's already Monday again, and that means it's the next episode of Mondays with Margaret. Today we will be talking about another poetry collection called Two-Headed Poems. My copy of this book is a first edition from a used bookstore. And Two-Headed Poems was published in 1978 by Oxford University Press. And this copy, it seems, was a birthday gift to Linda from her, it says, current, in quotation marks, friends. And their names, these current friends, are Alex C. and David C. And they wrote the ACDC very large, so they must be fans. My guess is maybe they're no longer friends since, I don't know, can you see that there? Yeah, so you can see the AC/DC is really large, since Linda gave away the book, so my guess is they're no longer current friends. Anyway, I was very happy to read it, and today I'm going to talk about the themes in the 29 poems, and I'm going to read some of my favorites to you. And just before I get to that, I also want to mention that this edition, as I've noticed in a couple other Atwood books, like last week's Days of the Rebels, she gives thanks to Dennis Lee, who is a Canadian poet that when I was a kid, I used to know his poem Alligator Pie by heart. So I just think it's, you know, such a great connection, and it's really neat to see the other talented people who have supported and befriended Margaret Atwood. So some of the themes in Two-Headed Poems are what we have come to expect from Margaret Atwood, like nature, and I think the poem A Paper Bag could be about invisibility, or it could be about possibility, or both in this case. But I think that this collection allows us to see a new side of Atwood that we haven't seen before. So we see the themes of our mortality in The Woman Who Could Not Live with Her Faulty Heart. And I want to share that one with you because I love some of the descriptions in this, and I think that this is probably my favorite, or one of my favorites of the collection. So it's on page 14. The Woman Who Could Not Live with Her Faulty Heart. I do not mean the symbol of love, a candy shape to decorate cakes with, the heart that is supposed to belong or break. I mean this lump of muscle that contracts like a flayed biceps, purple blue, with its skin of suet, its skin of gristle, this isolate, this caved hermit, unshelled turtle, this one lungful of blood, no happy plateful. All hearts float in their own deep oceans of no light, wet, black, and glimmering, their four mouths gulping like fish. Hearts are said to pound. This is to be expected, the heart's regular struggle against being drowned. But most hearts say, I want, I want, I want, I want. My heart is more duplicitous, though no twin as I once thought. It says, I want, I don't want, I want, and then a pause. It forces me to listen. And at night it is the infrared third eye that remains open while the other two are sleeping, but refuses to say what it has seen. It is a constant pestering in my ears, a caught moth limping drum, a child's fist beating itself against the bed springs. I want, I don't want. How can one live with such a heart? Long ago I gave up singing to it. It will never be satisfied or lulled. One night I will say to it, heart, be still, and it will. Daybooks 1 reminded me of last week's Days of the Rebels because it talks about the people who had cleared the land and made the rock piles, and how we have inherited these cairns, as Atwood says, and we undo what has been done. This is also the first poem that I can recall her referring to her daughter, at least explicitly. So Margaret was with Graham Gibson at this point, and their daughter Eleanor Jess was born in 1976, so this does make sense. I believe they called her just Jess, though. So her daughter is mentioned in a couple of the other poems in this collection too. And in 5 poems for grandmothers, we learn a bit about Margaret's maternal grandmother and her relationship with her. So I'm going to read those poems to you as well. 5 poems for grandmothers. In the house on the cliff by the ocean, there is still a shell bigger and lighter than your head, though now you can hardly lift it. It was once filled with whispers. It was once a horn. You could blow like a shaman, conjuring the year, and your children would come running. You've forgotten you did that. You've forgotten the names of the children, who in any case no longer run, and the ocean has retreated, leaving a difficult beach of gray stones. You are afraid to walk on. The shell is now a cave, which opens for you alone. It is still filled with whispers, which escape into the room, even though you turn it mouth down. This is your house. This is the picture of your misty husband. These are your children, webbed and doubled. This is the shell, which is hard, which is still there, solid under the hand, which mourns, which offers itself, a narrow journey along its hallways of cold pearl, down the cliff into the sea. It is not the things themselves that are lost, but their use and handling. The ladder first, the beach, the storm windows, the carpets, the dishes, washed daily for so many years, the pattern has faded. The floor, the stairs, your own arms and feet, whose work you thought defined you. The hairbrush, the oil stove with its many failures, the apple tree and the barrels in the cellar for the apples. The flesh of apples, the judging of the flesh, the recipes in tiny brownish writing with the names of those who passed them from hand to hand. Gladys, Lorna, Winnie, Jean. If you could only have them back, or remember who they were. How little I know about you finally, the time you stood in the 19th century on Yonge Street, 1,000 miles from home, with a brown purse and a man stole it. 6 children, 5 who lived. She never said anything about those births, and the one death, her mouth closed on a pain that could neither be told nor ignored. She used to have such a sense of fun. Now girls, she would say, when we would tease her. Her anger, though, why that would curl your hair, though she never swore. The worst thing she could say was, "Don't be foolish." At 80, she had 2 teeth pulled out and walked the 4 miles home in the noon sun, placing her feet in her own hunched shadow. The bibbed print aprons, the shock of the red lace dress, the pin I found at 6 in your second drawer, made of white beads, the shape of a star. What did we ever talk about but food, health, and the weather? Suns branch out, but one woman leads to another. Finally, I know you, through your daughters, my mother, her sisters, and through myself. Is this you, this edgy joke I make? Are these your long fingers, your hair of an untidy bird? Is this your outraged eye, this grip that will not give up? Some kind of ritual for your dwindling, some kind of dragon, small, benign, and wooden, with 2 mouths to catch your soul, because it is wandering like a lost child. Lift it back safely. But we have nothing, we say. How is she? Not so good, we answer, though some days she's fine. On other days you walk through the door of the room in the house where you've lived for 70 years and find yourself in a hallway you know you have never seen before. Midnight, they found her opening and closing the door of the refrigerator, vistas of day-old vegetables, the used bone of an animal, and beyond that the white ice road that leads north. They said, "Mother, what are you doing here?" "Nothing is finished or put away," she said. "I don't know where I am." Against the disappearance of outlines, against the disappearance of sounds, against the blurring of the ears and eyes, against the small fears of the very old, the fear of mumbling, the fear of dying, the fear of falling downstairs, I make this charm from nothing but paper, which is good for exactly nothing. Goodbye, mother of my mother, old bone tunnel through which I came. You are sinking down into your own veins, fingers folding back into the hand. Day by day, a slow retreat behind the disk of your face, which is hard and netted like an ancient plate. You will flicker in these words and in the words of others for a while and then go out. Even if I said them, you will never get these letters. Even if I see you again, I will never see you again. I'm totally guessing here, but I'm thinking that motherhood for Margaret, would have her thinking about the mothers who mothered her. She writes about her grandmother and her grandmother's life, whose name, by the way, was Ora Louise Webster, in a beautiful way. And Ora Louise died in June of 1979 in Nova Scotia, so just less than a year after this poetry collection was published. We've seen themes of aging in some of Atwood's earlier poems, especially the journals of Susanna and Moodie, and also in a couple of the short stories in Dancing Girls. But this one, I think, shows a more personal side of Atwood, which is kind of nice, I think. The title poem, or poems, are inspired by Siamese twins. Two-Headed Poems is a little long for me to read. It's about 15 pages and it's divided into 11 poems. I think it must have been an intentional decision to put it pretty much in the middle of the collection because several of the poems have a duality to them. For example, there is Daybooks 1 before Two-Headed Poems and then Daybooks 2 on the other side after Two-Headed Poems. Some of the poems have this duality within them, like the right hand fights the left. And for Two-Headed Poems, the idea of the Siamese twins is used as a metaphor for, it could be the tensions within a particular relationship or in general relationships, and then perhaps in particular in relationships of the French and English tensions within Canada, definitely at the time. The poem The Bus to Alliston, Ontario is also a personal one, as Atwood was living in Alliston when this collection was published. It's also falling into Atwood's Canadian literature themes that she talks about in Survival, because that poem in particular talks about the dangers of the winter weather. The next poem that I want to share is one that also had a beginning before Two-Headed Poems and kind of has a follow-up, since it's on the opposite side of Two-Headed Poems in this collection. So it's called The Woman Makes Peace with Her Faulty Heart. And I loved the descriptions in this poem as well, so I'm going to share that with you. The woman makes peace with her faulty heart. It wasn't your crippled rhythm I could not forgive, or your dark red skinless head of a vulture, but the things you hid. 5 words in my lost gold ring, the fine blue cup you said was broken, that stack of faces, gray and folded, you claimed we'd both forgotten. The other hearts you ate, and all that discarded time you hid from me, saying it never happened. There was that, and the way you would not be captured, sly featherless bird, fat raptor singing your ruckus-punctured song with your talons and your greedy eye, lurking high in the molten sunset, sky behind my left cloth breast to pounce on strangers. How many times have I told you, the civilized world is a zoo, not a jungle, stay in your cage, and then the shouts of blood, the rage as you threw yourself against my ribs. As for me, I would have strangled you gladly with both hands, squeezed you closed, also your yelps of joy. Life goes more smoothly without a heart, without that shiftless emblem, that fly-blown lion, magpie, cannibal eagle, scorpion with its metallic tricks of hate, that vulgar magic, that organ the size and color of a scalded rat, that singed phoenix. But you've shoved me this far, old pump, and we're hooked together like conspirators, which we are, and just as distrustful. We know that, barring accidents, one of us will finally betray the other. When that happens, it's me for the urn, you for the jar. Until then, it's an uneasy truce, an honor between criminals. Atwood continues to give us tales of her family in the second half of the collection as well. The poem The Red Shirt is for her sister Ruth, who is 12 years younger than Margaret. And not only is the poem for Ruth, but somehow Atwood manages to include her daughter and make it another poem that includes duality and symbols, as well as the theme of connection. It's another longer poem, so I am only going to read the first 2 parts of it. A red shirt for Ruth. My sister and I are sewing a red shirt for my daughter. She pins, I hem. We pass the scissors back and forth across the table. Children should not wear red, a man once told me. Young girls should not wear red. In some countries it is the color of death, in others passion, in others war, in others anger, in others the sacrifice of shed blood. A girl should be a veil, a white shadow, bloodless as a moon on water, not dangerous. She should keep silent and avoid red shoes, red stockings, dancing. Dancing in red shoes will kill you. But red is our color by birthright, the color of tense joy and spilled pain that joins us to each other. We stoop over the table, the constant pull of the earth's gravity furrowing our bodies, tugging us down. The shirt we make is stained with our words, our stories. The shadows the light casts on the wall behind us multiply. This is the procession of old leathery mothers, the moon's last quarter before the blank night. Mothers like worn gloves, wrinkled to the shapes of their lives, passing the work from hand to hand, mother to daughter, a long thread of red blood, not yet broken. I think what I enjoyed most about this collection is that I could see Atwood from another perspective. It feels like she is more than just an academic with a message, but someone who has a bit more life experience and is willing to reflect on that life and has something to say about it. Although I think poetry is always personal, there is an obvious personal element and an opening up of Margaret here. It felt more domestic and homey, if that makes sense, while still being true to who Atwood is and what's important to her. And I also liked the structure of the collection, the mirroring of the poems on either side of two-headed poems. And you might have noticed that the 2 poems I chose to share before two-headed poems were about the woman with her faulty heart, and also a poem about family. And then the 2 poems that I shared after two-headed poems were about the woman with the faulty heart, and then another poem about family. And I did this intentionally because I wanted to pay respect to what Atwood was doing here. I also want to send out a huge thank you to all of you who are following the Mondays with Margaret series. I know that reading Atwood is not for everyone, but I am really enjoying everything that I'm learning along the way, and it's nice to know that I can share that with other people who are along for the adventure, and not just me and my pups, who I think they're behind me here. So thank you so much for being part of that adventure. The other thing that I also love, and this is going to show my reading geekiness a bit, is that when I'm looking at the front of Atwood's books as we are reading along, and every week, especially in the first editions, and they have the list of all of her books to that point, and I look at that list and I think, yep, we've read all of those, and I get kind of excited. So it's a great feeling, and I look forward to reading even more. Please let me know what you thought of the poetry collection, two-headed poems. Did you have any favorite poems? Did you see any new themes? I would love to know your thoughts, and I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.